Hello gamers, this is Sai, and welcome back to Which Way Games. Are we ready for the most powerful superhero team ever?
Patrick?
And with that being said, let's get on with the video. When it comes to video games, some gamers love the escapism that comes from playing. Being able to drive supercars on a track, flying starships through intergalactic space, and being the hero that saves the world. These kind of things always leave a sense of wonder and achievement for gamers. Managing to do things that are in the world of make-believe and fantasy could be part of the reason why the video game market boomed over the last few decades. For me though, knowing the actions that I take throughout a game will either save an entire planet from destruction or even save a princess kidnapped by evil forces. These decisions that I make as a gamer always makes me feel like I am the hero that I control. And as with all heroes, they must come from somewhere. Some of these start out as myths and legends, with stories being handed down through the ages. Such stories as the 12 Labours of Hercules, Sun Wukong's journey to the west, and the legendary tales of King Arthur. Obviously, these are still told to this day, but in the modern age, gamers as well as non-gamers have new heroes with new stories to be told. Probably one of the biggest contributors for these new heroes and the stories that they come with is from the world of comic books, especially from two very well-known comic publishers. Marvel Comics originally started out as timely publications but wouldn't be known as Marvel until 1961. The superhero genre was on a bit of a decline following the years after World War II. However, DC Comics successfully revived this genre in the late 50s, and Marvel followed suit with a title starring the Fantastic Four. This came with some success but nowhere near the levels of DC Comics' own contributions. However, with the introduction of the Amazing Spider-Man, this proved to be one of Marvel's most successful comic franchises at the time. With a new style of storytelling, this was one factor of Marvel's success, with the main hero for Spider-Man was not a muscle-bound adult, but instead a young teenager and all the problems that come with being one. This character flaw system led the way for more characters to be created, each with their own unique quirks and misfortunes. And another thing that Marvel introduced was the world of mutants. At the time, the word mutant was not used much, but it captured the attention of readers. Within this world, part of the human race had evolved into individuals with special abilities. Some would be used for good, while others would be used for evil. And a few of these mutants became part of a team known as the X-Men. The X-Men comics proved to be very popular for Marvel, that soon not only were more and more comics made for this team of mutants, but eventually some of the X-Men had their own line of comics. My favourite is Wolverine. Now he's the best at what he does, but what he does isn't very nice. With more superheroes starting to appear, it would only be a matter of time before films and video games would be made about Professor Xavier's team of mutants. One game that's always been enjoyable to play is the PlayStation 2's X-Men Legends. X-Men Legends was developed by Raven Software, who had quite a successful run with games for home computers. With sites set on home consoles, X-Men Legends will be the very first console game from Raven Software. Taking inspiration from games such as Final Fantasy, Raven Software wanted to make an X-Men RPG but not have it as a turn-based strategy game. Experimenting with different modes of gameplay, Raven Software felt that gamers would prefer a more action-paced game, but they wanted strategy to feature in the game as well. Being able to choose characters with different abilities would be part of this strategy, but I'll come back to this later. With a game based in the world of comics, Raven Software decided to use cel shading for the character designs. Now, cel shading seemed to be everywhere in the early 2000s, especially for games such as Sly Raccoon and Killer 7. The decision to use cel shading for X-Men Legends allowed Raven Software to stay closer to its source material and recreate the look of the comics. Although, with a long-running history to choose designs from, Raven Software was inspired by Marvel Comics' Ultimate X-Men. With this comic line, Raven Software are able to create their own designs for costumes, but with the permission of Marvel of course. They even brought in writers from Marvel, as well as having the legend himself, Stan Lee, consulting. Raven Software wanted X-Men Legends to be something special, especially with the huge fan base from the comics, the cartoon, as well as the X-Men movies released at the time. Speaking of the cartoon, this aired in 1992 and was hugely popular with fans. The animation was great and the theme tune is still regarded as one of the greatest. At the time, there was an arcade game too, which is super fun to play, especially with other gamers. Anyway, going back to X-Men Legends, this was released in 2005 and was published by Activision, who gamers might know are responsible for publishing most games from the 80s through the 90s and even into the 2000s. And like always, let's go back to the past to see how this game was advertised.
Are you getting this? Yeah! Are you getting this? Yeah! Get the car! Get the car!
X-Men Legends. Choose your X-Men. Combine their powers. Save a helpless planet. X-Men Legends. Rated T for teen.
The plot of X-Men Legends starts with a mutant called Allison Cressmere being abducted by the Genetic Research and Security Organisation. Allison has a mutant ability to control volcanic activity, which will prove useful if weaponised. As she is being led away by the GRSO, Mystique and the Blob arrive to kidnap her. Wolverine does what he can to stop the evil duo, but sadly Allison is kidnapped. Teaming up with Cyclops, Wolverine goes on a mission to rescue her from the evil clutches of Mystique. Being successful in this mission, Allison is then taken back to the Xavier Institute for safety as well as some much needed training. With her training completed, Allison then joins the X-Men with a codename of Magma. The X-Men then go on missions to stop the exploits of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, they survive attacks on the Shadow King, and then they have to deal with the return of the Deadly Sentinels. During these missions though, Professor Xavier ends up being kidnapped, and while on a rescue mission, the X-Men uncover a larger plot, where Magneto plans to cover the Earth in total darkness by having Asteroid M collide with the planet, trying to recreate events from 65 billion years ago in the age of dinosaurs. What follows is a race against time to stop the Master of Magnetism and his plans of destroying the Earth. Gameplay for X-Men Legends allows gamers to choose a team of 4 characters to create a unique group of X-Men. Each character has their own ability that can be used in connection with other team members to create a super combo attack. Having team members level up throughout gameplay can change the events of a battle in favour of the gamer. Also, as gamers proceed throughout the game, more characters can be unlocked and they'll open up new areas as well as more abilities. In total, there are 15 playable characters, which has multiple possibilities in creating the ultimate team. Being able to switch between characters at the touch of a button doesn't stop the flow of action in X-Men Legends. With plenty of unlockables throughout the game, gamers can view these in the X-Mansion that acts as the hub world, such as bios for the X-Men, cinematics and comic book covers. There is even an X-Men trivia game for true fans to test their knowledge, as well as the infamous Danger Room that is known to push the X-Men to their limits and beyond. At the time of X-Men Legends release, there were 2 X-Men films already out and a third was on the way. Patrick Stewart, who plays Professor Xavier in the films, provided the voice acting for Professor X. Unfortunately though, Hugh Jackman didn't provide the voice of Wolverine. To me though, he'll still always be Wolverine, although he may don the claws one more time. When the first X-Men film was released, the superhero franchise was in its infancy, but luckily X-Men was a success and the rest is history. And for those Metal Gear Solid fans out there, X-Men and its sequel were written by David Hayter, otherwise known as the voice of Solid Snake. X-Men Legends was met with positive reviews when released, but the AI system for the enemies, as well as the computer-controlled X-Men, were a bit lacking, taking away from the experience of playing. The game was so successful it ended up selling over 800,000 copies and was granted a sequel because of this success. In the sequel, the X-Men would face off against Apocalypse, but this time they wouldn't be alone. In fact, the villains would end up teaming up with the X-Men, but that's for another time. If gamers haven't played X-Men Legends but are fans of RPGs, then this game is a treat. And with X-Men Dark Phoenix now out at the cinemas, I'm looking forward to the new lineup of superhero movies that are due to follow. Hopefully, as I said, Hugh Jackman will reprise his role as Wolverine one last time. Anyway, come back next time when Crash Bandicoot has to participate in a racing circuit against an evil alien known as Nitrous Oxide. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next game.